Welcome on in, golf fans. It's your boy Gsluke here with our course breakdown for this week's Rocket Mortgage Classic. Gonna break down what you need to know about Detroit Golf Club, both from the PGA DFS and the prop perspective, before going out there and firing on some of your exposure. The goal here, and something that I'm really trying to focus on going forward, is being a little bit more concise in these videos, really narrowing down what you guys need to know this week so you can go out there, absorb the information quickly, and get on your way with your process. So without further ado, let's go ahead and hop in what to expect this week. So we've got ourselves a birdie fest up there in Detroit, Michigan, a par 72. Detroit Golf Club is a mixture of the north and the south course, but mostly really the north course here at this country club. You've got ourselves 7,370 yards of green acres to work with, which sounds long on the scorecard perspective, but this is routinely one of the top 5, if not one of the top 10 easiest golf courses in all of the PGA Tour. So a few reasons for that. First off, pretty much no penalty off the tee. Water's in play in only one of the 18 holes. And in terms of your fairway width, it's right around 35 yards wide on average. So much wider than your PGA Tour average course. That, coupled with the lack of water, also not much to worry about in terms of trees. While there are tree-lined fairways to it, it's more of that Parkland style golf course where holes are right on top of other holes here at Detroit Golf Club. As you can imagine, for a metropolitan golf course, right, not all that much land to work with. When you're missing offline, you're usually in a small little patch of trees in between holes, if not on another fairway. So you've got yourself a situation where players will bomb away off the tee, set up wedges into even some of the longer holes on property, and even the 450 to 500 yard par fours, which aren't all that common on this golf course, get absolutely torn apart. So you've got four par fives, as per usual at a par 72, same thing with the par 3s. This place played 1.6 under par last year. Let's see, 2021 played 1.45. 2020 played 1.95 under par. I think you get the idea there. It played extremely easy pretty much every single year. There might be slight deviations based on the weather, but based on recent conditions in Detroit, we'd expect it to be on the easier end of the spectrum. They got a huge storm in the area Sunday night. They're getting plenty of rain here on Monday. In fact, expecting right around half an inch to an inch of rain. And over the last 2 weeks in Detroit, they've had over 2 inches of rain, period. So you're dealing with wet conditions. I know on the GCSA report it says, oh, they had a dry spring. Well, that was up until the last week and a half out there in Detroit. So expect conditions to be even softer than what we've seen over the last few years, which of course is going to lead to an even lower scoring average. So maybe rather than 1.6 shots under par, you'll see something closer to like 2 shots under par this year. Your driving accuracy percentage was 62.4% last year, which is right around 2.3% higher than your tour average. So I would expect that to creep up a little bit. Maybe that's closer to 64, maybe even 65%. And your green and regulation percentage was 71.8% last year. That's also probably going to see a significant increase there too. So expect this course to be even softer than what you've seen for past few versions. A lot of that has to do with the weather leading up to this golf tournament. A few other things to note: the greens are a bent POA surface. So the same kind of grass as we saw last week, you'll see the same at the John Deere. A 3M Classic, I believe, has the same kind of green complexes. Just perfect in the Northeast Midwest this time of year. So that'll be kind of like the green type of the next month on tour. And really, they play pure. They're not that bumpy in the afternoon. A lot of times you'll hear POA, budding in the afternoon, making it real troublesome for players. It doesn't have that same kind of effect when it's in that 50-50 combination with the bent grass. So don't worry about that effect all that much. I mean, you'll still see the guys in the morning probably play a little bit better than the guys in the afternoon, but it won't be as pronounced as what you'd see for like one of those West Coast events when it's a pure POA surface. The sand bunkers are plenty. There's 87 on property. So unlike water hazards, there are plenty of bunkers, but last year they played among the easiest in all the PGA Tour. In fact, I believe they were second easiest last year, behind the ones. Colonial were the hardest ones on the PGA Tour. I'm not sure what the easiest ones were, but I know that the Rocket Mortgage bunkers were second. You're also looking at a golf course that has 5,000 square foot greens. So though they're easy to hit, right, we talked about that, nearly a 72% green and regulation rate last year, they are small surfaces, just over 5,000 square foot per green. So if you miss, you're probably not going to have that much distance to the hole. Most of the green complexes here are either little shaved off chipping areas, which aren't all that severe around this track, right? It's a Donald Ross design over 100 years ago, or little rough areas. They're going to keep you within 15 to 20 feet at the hole sometimes. So it's not all that difficult around the green. You see a lot of the poor around the green players tend to find success around a Detroit golf club, which is also a trend that we've noticed over the past few iterations. Let's do a little hole-by-hole breakdown now and take a look at some of the shots these guys are playing. So first off, if you're looking at the Detroit Golf Club, the North Course, there's a few things that are different. So first off, holes 1 and 2 are holes 8 and 9. So if you're on the Pro Visualizer Championship course, it'll account for that over here, which is super nice. But hole number 1, it's a handshake. It's less than 400 yards. Tiny green like you'll see on plenty of the holes around property, but still a wedge at most, right? If not a little flip wedge into hole number 1. So you're going to see a ton of birdies there. Hole 2 is 454, but it's another relatively easy hole. You'll see just how wide and wide open most of these tee shots are. And if anything, I'd say hole number 2, one of the more devious on property, because you do have this OB over there to the left. To the right, a few trees, I guess, that can block you out, but that's as hard as it's going to get, right? It's that parkland style. You can see the hole over there that I was talking about. They're pretty much stacked on top of each other, which means if you miss in between the holes, there's going to be a few shrubs, maybe a few trees to worry about, but you can easily shape shots around them and still get it up at least green high. So you're not going to see a ton of doubles, triples at this kind of golf course. And if anything, you're going to see a lot of people saving par at worst from some of those positions. Hole 3 is 394. It's a hole that's actually a part of the South Course, so I think it's the only one on property that they're using from the South Course, but it's 394, slight dogleg from right to left. This fairway bunker can be a little bit devious, but once again, another wedge in. Hole 4 is 628. This is the longest hole on property by far, and one where the real distance advantage can be had. If you can hit it something closer to 330, maybe 340 off the tee, you might be able to reach the screen in 2, but you can see we have it out here at 320 already, which would already be an aggressive drive, and you have 300 yards left. So I would say this is a 3-shotter for most of the field, but if you are an elite tier player like a Bryson did when he went out there and won this course, you can easily get home in 2. Hole 5 is 150. It's a par 3, straightforward, probably another pitching wedge at most for players. Hole 6 is 468. Slight little gentle dogleg from left to right, but once again, a driver, a mid-iron at the very most. If you're a little bit more aggressive and you do bang the driver off the tee here, you're probably going to have a pitching wedge at most in, probably even a degreed wedge. Hole 7 is 557. This par 5 is reachable in 2 by every player in the field, and even if you were to hit a 3-wood off the tee, you hit another 3-wood into this green. If you hit a driver off the tee, some of the longer players, I mean, Bryson was joking about having 9 irons into this, and he wasn't kidding, right? If he hit it 358.5 here, he was hitting it like 370, 375 that week when he won here at the Rocket Mortgage. He could legitimately have 150 yards in, or less than that, into a par 5. So easy to reach into, even for some of the shortest hitters on all of the tour. Hole 8 is 373. Bryson, once again, was scaring this green. If you take the direct line, let's see, it's like 345. It's only 320 to this mark here. It's like 345 to the front of the green, I believe. These kind of elite tier players, any of the elite distance guys in the field, Cam Davis tried to do it in a few rounds, might try and go for hole number 8. Hole 9 is 209. It's one of the longer par 3s on property, but also one of the larger greens on property too, so they help you out a little bit. Hole 10, if you're starting on the back, dogleg from right to left, another 3-wood wedge, could even be a driving iron wedge into this green. This course, you can see why it gets eviscerated. Hole 11, one of the longer par 3s, but once again, a larger catcher style kind of green to help you out a little bit. It's heavily sloped from back to front, so you definitely don't want to go over the back, but it helps you hold the shot, especially with some of the longer irons. Hole 12 is 462, so if anything, I'd say the back 9, the first few holes may be a little bit more difficult than the first few holes in the front, but you'll see real quickly, it gets easy real quick. First off with hole 13. 395. Some of the longer players can get it up there within 40, sometimes even 30 yards in front of the green, and make it a real easy hole. Hole 14, 565, another easy to reach into par 5. This one here, a little bit more risky because of the water on the left, but even if you bail out to the right, especially to left side pin locations, can be a relatively easy up and down. Hole 15 is 159, another short par 3. Those guys will tear that apart. Hole 16 is 450, another scoreable hole, right? It's a driver, probably a 9-iron for most players, I would imagine. Hole 17, 575. As you can see, both of the par 5s in the back, easy to reach in 2. So you're going to see eagles at both of them. Some of the elite tier players might even have like a 6-7 iron at most into this. And then hole 18, 463, it's not a pushover. I would say the drive here, a lot more awkward than you would expect. There's going to be people that try and drive it down to the corner here. I actually think that might be the safest play on this hole, because if you try and lay back a little bit, and you'll see a lot of people do this, which leaves you like 180 yards in, not only can you miss into one of these fairway bunkers, this one to the left makes it really tricky. You might miss over here to the right. If you somehow hit it over this bunker and end up in this little gully, I've seen a lot of people get unlucky. I remember last year, there was somebody that was up against a rock and had to take an unplayable, ended up like triple bogeying 18 here. There are people that just have to like chip out sideways. If you end up in one of these fairway bunkers, it's really easy to chunk a shot into this little gully. Like, I don't even know what to call it. It's some sort of hazard. A lot of people can hit out of it though. So I don't think there's usually water in it. Maybe with all the rain that they've had, there might be water in it. I really couldn't tell you. It is a hazard though. It has a red stake, if I remember correctly. Either way, a lot of people chunk it into that, and a lot of people end up with huge scores here on 18. So if there's really any sort of like huge hazard, I know in the one par 5 you have the water hazard. This one is probably the one that's going to cause players the most trouble on the entire golf course, and fittingly, it's hole 18 of the golf course too. Now that you've seen the golf course, let's go through our key stats of the week. So the sort of metrics I'm using to identify our top plays and top prop players. So first up, we've got shots gained putting on bent POA. So it's a putting contest. You're probably going to hear that a million times this week. So we'll get it out of the bag early. It's a putting contest, right? Pretty much everyone that top 5, top 10s here ends up killing it with the flat stick. And that does include Bryson when he won, right? He's kind of a putting specialist. And even Tony Finau last year went out there, lit it up on the greens around Detroit Golf Club. So even if you're a ball striking first kind of player like a Finau, right, a driving first kind of player like a Bryson, if you're going to go out there, spike that top end finish, you're going to have to get it done with the flat stick, right? There's not going to be that Scotty Scheffler kind of performance at this golf course where you're gaining like 15, 16 strokes tee to green, right around a neutral with the flat stick and win. I don't know if that can be done around a Detroit Golf Club. So not a surprise that some of those top end players aren't making the trip out here. What that does is it opens up the field, especially some of the 6, 7K options have a lot more win equity at this kind of event that they would at many others. So, typically you see shots gained approach there at number 1, but this is one of the few golf courses, there's actually going to be a few over the next few weeks where putting kind of trumps everything. And especially with my modeling, especially with some of my plays down low, that is especially the case this week. And it's unfortunate. I love myself a ball striking fest, but that's not really what we have here. And number 2, we've got shots gained approach. You can see I have opportunities gained also on the sheet. So trying to take a look at players that can be aggressive, that set up a lot of birdie looks. That's the idea with opportunities gained. If you're not familiar with the stat, that's how many looks players are giving themselves within 15 feet. So reasonable birdie looks, right, per round is a way to look at opportunities gained. So I'm looking for players that are aggressive, right? They can get to something like 25 to 30 under par, because that's what's going to take to win this event, especially with it being so receptive, so damp with the rain that they're currently getting. I'm also looking at driving distance. You've seen a lot of correlation with top 5, top 10 finishers in driving distance at this event. Now, if you look at the top 25 or just guys that make the cut, there's a lot of players that are shorter, more accuracy based, but the reason for that, at least this is my hypothesis, right? I'm just looking at correlation data. A lot of other people have done this and have pointed out driving accuracy as a stat. The reason why you think you're getting driving accuracy as something that's correlating, because a lot of the more accurate drivers also tend to be some of the better putters on tour. And it's not one-to-one. Not every really accurate driver tends to be a really good putter. But because players lack distance off the tee, typically, to be a tour level player, to be competitive out there, they've got to make it up at some point in a majority of them. Right? It's a generalization that I'm making here. Tend to do it with the flat stick. So some of that kind of data can be a little bit noisy. I think that those kind of effects can be the reason why, because when you look at the winners, I mean, Bryson, long off the tee, right? Cam Davis, long off the tee. Last year's winner, Tony Finau, long off the tee. The only real exception to that was Nate Lashley in the first ever iteration of the event. And honestly, he fits more like the putter, real aggressive birdie or better percentage kind of mold, which we'll talk about here in a second. But a lot of the players, like top 5, top 10s over the last few years, have been dominated by players that are some of the longest on the PGA Tour. So it's something that I'm using to differentiate my poll, especially if you want that top end upside. Right? It hasn't made as much a difference for going out there making the weekend, but for guys that have gone out there and had that spike performance, many of them have been the bombers in the field that can usually match it up with the putting for any given week. The other key stats we're looking at would be birdie or better percentage, or I kind of hinted at it with Nate Lashley. The Nate Lashley mold to get it done is to be a really, really good iron player, be a good bent POA putter, and to go out there be aggressive as hell, right? Get to something like 25 to 28 under par. So that's the other mold to get there. You're going to see a lot of just putting first kind of players fit that mold, which is going to help you with a lot of your 6 and 7K options in DFS too. If you're looking at short, easy courses, I don't think that's a bad idea. Remember, it's like 7,370 yards, but it plays a whole lot shorter than that in reality. So I think looking at easy courses is, a relatively easy correlation to do. But I like looking at short courses because of how many short irons you have in, right? Outside of the par 5s, outside of 2 of the par 3s, you're going to have a short iron, I think 12 of the holes. At least 10 of the holes, you're going to have like a 9-iron at most in hand. It's that type of golf course. So comparing it to a TPC River Highlands, even a Harbor Town, I think would be fair from that perspective too. In terms of comps, though, we got 3 that really come to mind this week. So first up, we've got TPC Deer Run, which we'll be at here very shortly on tour. Another birdie fest, another track with these bent POA greens, and where you're going to go out there, have a lot of wedges in hand. It's been called a birdie fest over the years, and a lot of players that have success at Detroit Golf Club have also had a ton of success at TPC Deer Run. It's only been a 4-round sample, so we don't have quite the leaderboard crossover that we would probably hope for, but as we get a larger sample over the next 5 years, I would imagine to see a ton of people popping up at both events, especially now considering how close they are in the tour schedule, right? We get them nearly back to, actually, it might even be back to back, at the same month of the year here, which is going to be huge when it comes to players coming into form, right? If they're into form at one course, it's such a similar course, you'll probably go out there and find success at the other. So I think 3-4 years from now, when we check in on this, TPC Deer Run is going to be like the clear #1 comp that we have. So yeah, a lot of things that you can use for comps there. Also, TPC Twin Cities, it's another track, another course, another tournament this time of the year. That's bent POA. You have a reliance on some of the shorter irons, and driving distance is surprisingly highly correlated to success, right? You have guys like Matthew Wolff that have had success out there, a lot of off-the-tee specialists. Cameron Champ comes to mind, right? Winner out there at TPC Twin Cities. And this week, right, for those top 5, top 10 finishes, driving distance has also been a key factor in that too. So once again, agronomy, easy scoring average, right? Someone like 20 under par plus winning it, all things that I'm looking at. And lastly, our track from last week, TPC River Highlands. I think this year's version would be like a perfect example of what you're going to see there at Detroit Golf Club. Easy scoring, receptive greens, and not all that much trouble off the tee, right? A few water hazards there at River Highlands, only 1 on course for this week. But similar setup, it's a par 70 instead of a par 72, so it does have that difference. That's why I have it down there at number 3. But Birdie Fest, similar reliance on putting, reliance on players that have a high birdie percentage, a high propensity to go out there and shoot a low round, and a lot of crossover that can be had there as well. So again, not that many years of history to go off of. We don't have that much crossover success that we can even look at, but these 3 have stood out to this point, and especially from the skill set perspective, I think you can find a lot of value when looking at some of the past results. Alrighty guys, that is all I've got for the course breakdown this week. Before you hop it out of here, comment down below what you've got as your winning score, and also smash that like button into oblivion. It goes a huge way with helping me grow the channel, lets me know that you guys enjoyed this content, want to see even more of it in the future, and gives you a little bit of good karma, good juju this week too. I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for all the support here. We will have value plays, core plays dropping as per usual. We're back down here in Florida. None of the travel BS that we had last week to deal with after the US Open. Ready to bring you guys all the content there. So subscribe to the channel. Make sure you don't miss any of that content when it drops. And mostly, Best of luck with those PGA DFS lineups and with any outright bets or any prop slips that you guys are going with for this week. Peace out. Let's get that bag. And I'll see you guys for that core plays video.